Hi, and welcome to our second episode of season three. I'm so excited to be here. And this is a topic today that I'm really excited about. I want to talk to you about the future of feeding therapy. But I think way beyond that, I think the future of therapy, I think the future of how we teach kids is just going to be changing in the future. I felt this shift for quite a while now, but I'm just going to sort of bring some light to it and just sort of discuss it. It's just sort of like an open conversation that's ongoing. And I love to hear from you and what your opinions are on this, and if you agree or if you're like, no, I think you're totally off, Christine. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it. This episode is titled "The Old Way of Therapy is Over, and Here's What's Next." And I know, and I've worked with in different settings, and I've met lots of different parents. I think there's a very common theme between all of the parents I have met, and that is that they have way too many things to be juggling. They often have a full-time job, if not more than one job, and not to mention worrying about doing all of the things for their kids, and then making sure that their kids are set for their school. Like, there's so many activities and different special days and things you have to bring in and things you just have to remember constantly being a parent, not to mention all of the extracurricular activities and being the chauffeur and bringing them from place to place. It just everyone is universally overwhelmed. So if you feel that same way, let me know. I'm sure you do. And I think they say the times we're living in, but I do remember a time when I didn't think that parents were quite as overwhelmed as they are now. And that's when I was a kid. And that just might be my experience. I know some people, their parents both worked, and it was probably very similar. But I do remember, my mom didn't work, and a lot of the moms on our street didn't work, and they were home with their kids, and it was just a little bit of like a different vibe. I feel like people would play outside more, neighbors would just chat more. We would get together, more like locally, like community based kind of things. And um yeah, it was like a very like lovely, supportive community that I have lived in, right? So, I know that not everybody has that, but I know that even not, it was only a couple of decades ago that it was pretty much the norm for one of the parents to be home. And it was usually like a one income household. And over the decades, it has become like almost a mandatory two income household. So I don't know if that resonates with any of you or not, but that's just been my observation. As I believe they say, I think I'm a millennial. So that's been my observation, I think, as a millennial. And this episode is absolutely not about placing blame. It's just I'm trying to offer like maybe a new perspective or a new path forward to parents who are feeling very like stretched thin, and you just want maybe some lasting change. You want to see your kids make some forward progress. And hopefully I'm going to be able to give some insight into that today. I do have some ideas on how therapy is changing to make that happen. So let me just go back to the traditional model of feeding therapy, like what, or really any therapy, right? This is generally speaking how therapy goes, right? You drop your child off, you take them to the therapy office. You have their appointment. The child gets taken to the room by the therapist. The parent waits in the waiting room. They read a book, they play on their phone, they do some work, whatever. And then you pay your copay and you pick your kid up when they're done. And then you repeat it again the next week, right? That's what I think a lot of parents are still doing today. And I think that's just what parents expect to be doing. They don't expect it to be anything different because that's what they know. That's what happens if you go to generally the psychologist's office or you go for OT or PT or speech. So it's just what seems to be expected as the norm. But I don't think just because it's the norm or what's expected means that it's the best option or the most efficient option or effective option. So, I think what happens is a lot of parents will feel that therapy and progress can be very slow and, at some point stalls out and plateaus and you kind of just hit like a wall and then you're like, I guess we're done with therapy now. Or you get close enough where you're like, all right, things aren't quite as terrible as they once were. I guess we're good enough. So you stop because it just seems like torturous for everybody. Like you don't want to be driving them. Maybe the kids don't want to be there. You're just like, everybody's over it. And you're like, I don't even know what we're here for anyway. I'm not really sure what they're doing in there at all. Right. So this model, I don't know exactly how it all got started. I wasn't around when therapy sort of, took off. I came into it much later, but I think the issue here is that there's a huge lack of continuity between the session and your home life. And I think the whole purpose and what parents seek when they start therapy is that they're expecting that something in their daily life is going to be changing. They're expecting a better experience between their child and something, maybe between their child and themselves, their child and food, their child and walking, their child and painting, whatever it is. They're expecting to see some sort of a change that could be noticeable in their day to day life, right? But I find that when you're dropping them off and there isn't that continuity between home and the clinic office, then that is completely left out and you're not seeing that carryover as much as you would like. You might be seeing it somewhat because, something is probably happening in that room and your child is doing something. So that's great, but it's probably not to the same degree that it could be. Um, so I think when parents are left out of the process, you're missing some key opportunities that we could otherwise be using to support the child and help them make progress faster. And I think with COVID, what happened was there was this almost like a mandatory, like you didn't have a choice. You kind of had to be on the Zoom with the therapist. And it did sort of change the dynamic a bit. And some parents absolutely hated it, and some parents absolutely loved it. They felt like they were a big part of the therapy and they understood what was happening more and they were excited about it. And then there were other parents who felt just completely overwhelmed and they just felt like they were babysitting their kids and they didn't know how to get them to sit. And there was still a disconnect, right? So I think people could have been in either boat. But I want to address that there is just a growing disconnect that I have noticed. I think just over the last few decades in society as a whole, I think parents probably only spend like a good 1 to 2 hours with their kids a day just due to work and school and activities. And, we're just outsourcing a lot of our time with our kids, not necessarily intentionally, but, we pay someone at daycare to take care of our kids while we go to work. We pay someone taxes, right, to teach our kids and they go to school and they're there for a long, long time, right? Then we pay someone to help them learn sports after school or whatever it is. Then we take them to therapy and we pay someone to help them to overcome whatever challenges they might be having, right? So I want you to know that there is absolutely no judgment here. I know that parents need to work because you need to pay for your house. Like, I get it. I know that you only have 1 to 2 hours, not because you want to only have 1 to 2 hours, because that's just literally the only time left in the day, right? So it's just maybe about exploring some more effective ways. So, my new vision for therapy, and one we've been implementing over the last year, which has been so exciting to see, is the parent focused coaching model of therapy. And this is where our parents are active, very, very active participants. They are learning specific strategies and tools to use directly with their kids at home. So, taking a lesson and then applying it immediately. So, this now becomes a partnership where the therapist is really a guide and your knowledge base and your here's your next step person. And the parent is really the one who is in the driver's seat, who's the one that's empowered, who is the one making all of the gains and the progress. And I we have found that parents who use this model successfully and really kind of take that ownership into it, they are seeing progress significantly faster and their confidence in their own roles are increasing because I find that the parents who want to be that hands off, like, here, you take them and try it because it didn't work with me, they just don't have that confidence. They don't have that same motivation anymore because they have lost confidence in their own ability. And I think some of that comes from that we just sometimes will need a little bit more time and more strategy. I think it's easy to say, like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing here. I want someone else who knows what they're doing to handle this. Because that's just sort of what I think our society, like, that's our go to. It's like, well, let me hire someone to do this. I'm going to find someone who knows how to do this. And there's nothing wrong with finding someone who knows more about a subject than you do. I think the issue is that when you completely 100% depend on them and them alone to see the changes, that's when it stalls, right? Because we're not building like, a new wing of your house. Like, you don't have to know like architecture and like engineering measurements and things. So you're not learning some of those technical aspects. There's a lot of that interpersonal. We're teaching in therapy, any kind of therapy. It's more of like giving you tools of what to say, how to react, how to present certain situations. And those are things that really can um, work well over a bunch of different problems and skill sets. So I think parents, their go-to is that, like, well, I can't, I'm not the expert. I don't know what to do. You're the expert. You do it. But again, we're not building a house. We're not building a bridge. We don't need like technical expertise here. A lot of what we need is that better connection between the parent and the child because that hands off, I don't know what to do is going to be reflective in that, your kids are also that, I don't know what to do with this food, right? It kind of almost mirrors back to you. And I did talk about that in the last week's episode as well. Um, but real serious results we got last year with parents who used this model of being coached. And I'm not saying that some of these parents didn't have in-person therapy. Some of them did come every week. The difference is it's not necessarily whether it's in person or virtual. The difference we saw is that the parents who took the time to learn and took a little bit of a baby step every day and learned a strategy, implemented the strategy, troubleshooted the strategy with us, they are the ones that saw progress incredibly. What week? Like, okay, so let's just say I think it seems to be about 4 months is what we've concluded between the parents who have done it. 4 months to significant, like, life altering changes versus over a year with parents who are not implementing, learning, doing any of those changes on their own. So it is a very big difference in time. I think also what parents had reported is that their connections with their child were so different now. They like I said, they did have that more confidence, but their relationships were just more positive in general. There was less of that battling, fighting, less of that, ugh, like throwing their hands up, like, I don't know what to do. And the parents just felt like they just had a better handle on things overall from what they've told me. And I think that is because they spent so much more time even just learning their kids' cues, understanding the why of why they reacted certain ways to things, and getting into their mindset, changing their own mindset a little bit. I think all of those things actually brought the family closer together. And I just thought that was so cool. So I want to give you some practical advice. I know that you're probably super busy and you're juggling a lot of different things. But I want you to think. So here's your first tip. I want you to think about your family's schedule. Give it a quick audit. Um, you know, think of activities that you can eliminate or reduce to create some more time together. And this probably won't be easy, and there might not be, a complete consensus and agreement upon everybody. But, I think honestly, I'm sure there's going to be parents who disagree with me. I think one extracurricular activity, maybe two per week is plenty. So that should be 1 or 2 nights that you go and take them to like one activity. I think that is plenty. I mean, I know parents who are literally out of their house 6 to 7 days a week doing extracurricular activities. And sometimes they go from one activity to the next, like they're just in the car the whole evening. So think about what can we eliminate? Are there the activities that your kids maybe they enjoy them, but they don't have like a passion for it, or they're just sort of coasting along and like going with the flow, but maybe it's not like what they really love. Focus on the things that they really love and spend time doing some of that. Also things like the travel sports, that is a huge time suck. And I know a lot of parents feel like it's an investment in the child's future. um, I usually don't share that that view. I think there's very few kids that get a benefit from that, and a lot of it is just time and money that, you know, goes ends up going nowhere, unfortunately. I know parents who have spent, $40,000 a year on travel soccer, and then you got the hotels and you got the food and you have the nights and you have to pay for the um all of the gear, and it's a lot. It is a lot on the family. And the kids, sometimes it's not like you're getting a full scholarship. It's not like, you get like crap grades and then you get into like this amazing school because you're on a travel team. Like, I have not seen that on anyone who's ever done travel. I am sure there are exceptions. I am sure there are wonderful stories about kids who did amazing things and they got a full ride to Duke or whatever. But I would say the vast majority of kids, that's not the case. But it is a big time suck, and it will take time away from you and your kids. I think just doing it locally and having fun, if it's something they enjoy, I feel truly, if it's meant to be that they are a star, they will be that star and they will shine brightly no matter where they are. I don't think they have to be in a special team to do that. That's my feel. Okay, so that's number one, right? Family schedule. Where can we cut out activities to spend more time together so we have time to do this and connect more? Number two, set small, consistent habits. Remember, the baby steps are what's going to lead to the big snowball rolling down the hill. It is so important to make our goals, right? If you haven't done our goal setting workshop, it's only $5. It's on our website under courses. It's such a great way to help you break down and plan what goals you want to do and make you accountable throughout the year. you know, Setting a goal, putting it in your phone and your planner for whatever it is, whatever the baby step is. Maybe that baby step is you're going to have at least one family meal a week. Maybe it's you're going to cook together, or you're going to present a new food, or you're going to learn to do X, Y, or Z. Whatever it is, just put it down somewhere and hold yourself accountable. Try to make it consistent, because if it's just a part of your routine, you're much more likely to be successful and not have to think about it. You don't want to have to think about it. You don't want to have to be like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot." You want it to just be like, "This is what I do next in my day," right? So small, consistent habits. Number 3, focus on quality over quantity. So small moments of connection truly matter, especially with kids. Making sure that we are putting down our phone, giving them eye to eye, undivided attention, and making connections, being truly interested in what they're talking about, what they did, and, laughing together, and having those moments of connection. That is what is going to make a big difference in our kids feeling safe around us, trying new foods. That's going to be a whole different topic, but that will really, really help. Those small moments will add up big time, big time. Number 4, leverage coaching tools, right? Apply strategies that you are learning in therapy. You don't have to necessarily be a part of our Unlocking Mealtimes program. I give tips on my podcast episodes. There's tons of tips on YouTube and the TikTok and Instagram. There's tips that I have everywhere. And maybe they're not even my tips. Maybe they're someone else's tips. But there are lots of tools you can use and strategies that you can use. I think parents get caught up in, well, which one do I use? And that's, of course, if you want to dive deeper, we give you that step by step in our Unlocking Mealtimes program, because we learn exactly on our roadmap where your child is. Like, what are their issues across those 4 pillars: gut, oral, motor, sensory, and mindset, right? So we give you this step by step, but if you want to sort of piecemeal it together, there's a lot of tips out there for you, even just on with my content alone, but there's lots of other people that have great content as well. So I want you to think it's not about doing more, but maybe about doing things differently. It's about more of that investing in your relationships with your child, and that is going to pay off for years to come. You know, People always say, like, well, you can't get this time back. And they're not wrong. And it's not like you don't have any time, but if we don't make time for these like moments where we can really connect with kids and teach them things, I think we are always going to be our child's first teacher. And whether you think you're teaching them or not, you are. So we're either going to be teaching them to have a life of hustle and go and, no time, no sleep, got to keep going, or we're going to teach them to slow down, make memories, and connect. And I think it's really just a choice, right, that we can make. And I'm not saying you have to be like 100% disconnected, homeschool your kids. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying we probably can find ways to make more meaningful connections during the week. So take some of this to heart. I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You know, I love to help you on your journey with this. So if you want to work with us more, visit unlockingmealtimes.com for our program. And exactly, we could dive into what your child's issues are and how to start making 2025 the year that your kids start to love food. We will see you next week. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.